Well, today's the day we waited for. And to be honest, I'm still hoarse and sick. I really shouldn't even be out here. But I'm dying to get started on this project, so what I thought I'd do, because Miles' school is shut down and I only have a couple hours each day, I wanted to get started. I set a reasonable goal for myself. I wanted to get the front end on the bike if possible and the front wheel. And what that's going to allow me to do is move the bike around. Right now I'm restricted because it's still on the come along. So even though I really am limited today, I wanted to get started and I wanted to get the front end and the front wheel on the bike if possible. Now I try to set this up in a reasonable way, and I apologize for being hoarse still, but step one is I'm going to have to get the calipers, and these are kind of awkward here. I'm going to have to zip tie these up, get all the wires pushed aside. So I want to try to do this methodically, and so I thought this through, that it would be in my best interest to be able to, once I get that done, I can move this motorcycle up where this one is, and it'd be a little more convenient to work on it since I'll have more room. See, I'm kind of confined here, and when I had Chris's bike here, it really got confined. That's why I don't have any more motorcycles. It's just awkward. Anyway, we did do the rest of the cleanup on that the other day, did some more polishing on the titanium, and we're pretty much ready to start putting the front end parts on. Now, lucky for us, it's a reasonably nice day, except it still is pretty cold. It was below freezing last night, but just at the point we normally would start getting ice on a pond. So this is probably the last time we're going to see our project all in pieces, and I'm not sure how much we're going to get done today. We're going to start by putting the fork legs on. They're ready to go. I've been very meticulous about making sure each part has been flitzed and cleaned and ready to put on. We have all our bolts in dedicated little tubs according to where they go. But the biggest part is now, I just wish I felt a little better, and I wish my voice wasn't so bad, but in our case, we got to go to war with the army we have. We got to go assemble a bike with the wheels we have, but I got to have a cup of coffee first. Everybody knows that. And it's proven when you're sick and you're recovering from a sore throat, extra coffee is the way to go. Do you think that bird cares if I'm sick? Do you think he cares? Not a bit. Go out and work in a garage, Wendy. Stop being a baby. So step one is pretty straightforward. We're going to take the legs out to the garage. We're going to take the bucket with the front end bolts and get the tubes and the lower legs put in. And after that coffee goes down, it'll be about 5 degrees warmer inside my stomach. Well, with the GS out of the garage, we got a little more room. Look what a beautiful day it is. I hear the birds chirping in the background. But it's time to go to work. So this is where the day is going to start. We're ready. We're coffeeed up. And we're just going to play this by ear. But again, it's a very short day because the schools in Rutherford are closed because of the virus. So with the first leg installed, the first thing is to get these socked down evenly, not torqued yet. I want everything a little tighter than hand tight and everything lined up before I actually tighten everything down, even though that is overkill, that's for sure. Alright, that'll keep it in place. And of course we got to do the same thing for the other side. Right, our next part, next part on this is going to be to assemble the fender and get the fender put in place, because the fender actually holds on the brake lines and some of the bracketing. So it's a little more complicated than it looks, and we're just going to take our time, make sure we don't scratch any of the parts. So this is what's a big help to me, is as I took this apart, I put various assemblies in various containers: rear wheel, fuel tank, front wheel, and I have all the parts that go to the front end of the bike here. And there's quite a bit of little bracketing and things and little sponges that have to go in places, and so all of this little stuff, having it in a dedicated little thing when you take it apart, will make putting the fender together just that much easier. And here's what really works for me, is having that quartz heater out here. It's just a little above freezing and it's cold. And doing this work out here, I don't want to get it that I'm scratching things up or beating things up. Having a little bit of, from the quartz heater, a little bit of heat, about 1.5 gallons of coffee, and the bolts all separated, will just make this a lot easier. It's not actually as simple as you might think, putting this all back together on the front. There's a lot of brackets and a lot of, well, in this case, self-tapping screws. I'm trying to clean up any hardware I haven't cleaned up yet as I put it in. And of course, if I get where I can't figure out where one part goes, or one screw or whatever, the whole thing, I'll go to the Partzilla, the SKU, and that'll be help, or the old videos where I took it apart. Now some of the hardware needs a final little polishing up before I put this together. Very easy to do. Even these little hardware cleanups, I think every little detail counts. There's just no shortcut to any of this. It just takes time. A couple extra minutes here and there, and the final product will be much nicer. As can happen, I forgot I had to put this fender in this piece before I put the bolt in. So I put a little more Loctite on it, and I'm ready to go. Now, I want to make this a little bit easier, I'm leaving all the bolts just hand tight so I can get everything lined up here. There's brackets that go to the calipers. Everything has to line up. Then at the very end of the job, I'll torque everything down. But I want to get all the bolts started. It's really more complicated than you think to get this fender on. Okay, we're trying to get the routing on these lines right, because these brackets, obviously there's a left and a right to this, and I want these to be exactly like a stock bike. Again, if I couldn't remember it, I took a lot of pictures and I have the video. Very handy. But I want to get that all routed in position before I try to put the wheel in. And now I can torque all these down. That whole front fender is lined up well here. All the brake lines are in. And we should be ready to drop the wheel in. And the last little detail, the reflectors get screwed on. Now what we have to do is get the calipers with some zip ties up out of the way. Make sure these are tight. You got to get the calipers up out of the way before we bring the wheel in, and the wheel should be ready to install. Boy, that's a tricky thing, getting that fender on all like that. That's just, as opposed to some of these bikes, you put the fender on in 3 seconds. It's a little bit, well, this is the way they designed it, and it obviously works pretty well. All right, the calipers are pulled up out of the way. We're all set for the wheel. And I would assume this is a really wonderful time to take a coffee break. It's really been cold out here. Well, we'll celebrate that we're ready to put the wheel on the bike. Oh, I'm looking forward to this. Now, today's actually the day we enter the 5th month of this restoration. And as you can imagine, I assume, and I've always calculated out, that roughly 4 hours a day I spend in the shop. And that would tell me that I have roughly, and give or take a few hours, about 500 hours into this restoration, and maybe a little more. So it's a 500-hour restoration. And that's why during the assembly like this, I'm really prone to take my time, have some extra coffee. I really wanted to enjoy seeing this come together in the next few days. And then the next thing will be to try to get a nice photo shoot, get a lot of photos, and then hopefully, that thing we're all looking forward to, some decent weather. But we're not there yet. We've had an unexpected winter. We've had some riding days when I never expected to get some. But overall, it's still winter. Time to take that wheel out. I'm ready. Now what happens, sometimes the spacers stay in by themselves. I don't want to add extra grease to it. It's something I have to clean up. So I always try to see if I can get it first without the spacers falling over. Without them falling out, get my foot underneath there. Of course, that's tentative. It didn't fall out yet. Looks like it's our lucky day. From this point on, it should be a piece of cake. Have to install a pinch bolt and get the calipers in place without scratching the wheels. That's the big one. Now before I put the calipers on, I want to make sure I don't have any friction. I'll put one caliper on, make sure I'm not rubbing on anything, and then put the other one on. Yeah, it looks like it's going to be good. Now I repolished up the caliper bolts, and of course they'll get blue Loctited in. Okay, so the whole trick is get rid of the zip ties. Make sure these are spread enough. And to do that, it's not going to be as easy as I think it is. Okay, so we got to spread these more, which is going to shrink up the other side. And we're going to have to spread the other side even more. Okay. Now with that spread all the way, the idea is not to hit the rim. Oh, lucky me. Now these bolts already have the Loctite on it. Already been polished, so we are really good to go here. And the real sin is right now when you wind up scratching something unnecessarily. That makes you crazy. Now these are going to have to, because I squeezed the other one, these are going to be all squeezed way too close together. Okay, so we can get these as far apart as possible. That just makes it easier to get it in. That is a good tip, by the way. Because I don't want to touch the rim. I don't want to touch it even a little bit. Now this is the last bolt that locks the front end in. Then we'll go around and torque everything down, and we will be good to go. This really worked out great today. And I never want to rush these kind of jobs. You wind up rushing, you scratch everything all to hell. This was worth taking my time. Took the better part of a work day here, but it doesn't matter, it's done right. So as I finish this up and try to get rid of some of the fingerprints and It looks like this part of it could not have gone better. I'm really impressed how nice this went together today. Takes a little extra time. Always worth putting in the extra effort, always. Now I'm looking around because I'm trying to think of, as I look around, if there's anything I've shortchanged myself on or something I need to take care of here. It doesn't look like it. Looks like we did a pretty good job today. Yeah. Everything's Loctited in, everything's torqued down the way it should be. Actually, we're ready. We can take the motorcycle off the come along here at the end of the day. Well, it has a whole different look than when we started this morning. Well, we're going to get to this tomorrow. I don't know if we're going to do, I think probably the back wheel would be the next thing. And then basically just get rid of the come along and we can wheel it around the garage and it'll make it a lot easier. But everything we did today just could not have been nicer. Worked out perfectly. Having our bolts all sorted out worked super, super nice. Couldn't want it to go any better than that. So it really was 5 months ago we started this project. We started with an 11-year-old motorcycle that had been ridden in salt and rain, and to look at it now, it's better than if I had bought a new motorcycle. At least that's the way I look at it. Not that I'm prejudiced. I'm never prejudiced. Anyway, I feel like I made good use of a day that I probably should have stayed in bed another day or two or a week. But I'm just so excited to work on this. I can't tell you. It was a wonderful day. I will remember this always as getting this puppy back at the beginning of it, and probably by the end of this week, it's going to be in one. If the weather changes and I get healthier, we'll get a ride in. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed the video, and thanks for watching. Now, basically, because I'm still hoarse and still sick, and I probably should not even be working, I thought this would be a great time to share some of the memories. We got a few minutes I can put of photos from my basically unlimited amount of pictures, and these are some of the great memories and why we love doing what we do. This is a picture from the top of Hawk's Nest overlooking the Hudson River. And this was one of the really, really fun days we had. I remember with Charlie, and when Joe had the big MV Brutale, and Charlie had his, this is a really classic bike here. And I remember when he was buying gas, somebody pulled in who really knew about bikes and was talking to him about it. I had the old Ferrari bike, and boy, I have memories of this Ferrari bike, which is now the FZR, of course. Another thing, here we are looking at these old photos. This is really amazing. Before I have the muffler, that muffler is now on Turbo Steve's bike. Before I had the Norton muffler. And my neighbor, who's a professional photographer, came in and shot a bunch of these pictures. Sarah, and she was very nice about doing it. That was really pretty cool. And, of course, all the gatherings at Perry's. This is Tim's really beautiful Norton. I think he's won many shows with this. If he didn't, he should have. And Mark Morgan. I mean, we had the A-Team. Not that long ago, the A-Team was really a big, important thing. We've all kind of gone our own way now, but it's still great memories. And I know Mark is working in Pittsburgh, and Glenn is doing his track day thing. And the memories are still there. And Vince, this day we went up to see Vince. He was doing wheelies up and down a block with the Trials bike and showing. I almost put it in a ditch. And then this is a ride I'll never forget. We went. You can see how much snow there was on the ground, and we would determine we were going to get a ride in. Now look at the winter we just had. How much nicer it is! Wow. And I remember poor Joe Roselli was really cold that day, and you can see we were really. Look at the snow there. This was a great memory. This is the kind of things that make you, the time you spend restoring these bikes, when you get to ride them all summer, the memories you have. This was some of the memories of the parts, the seat I made for the RD, and among other things, we were working on things. I have different exhaust on it there.
they're just the memories of these days. This is great pictures of we pulled the engine out of Glenn's Ducati, and this was a long story. This could go on forever. Glenn was working in the garage. Karen was making a soup. Luciano was over with his pepperoni sandwiches. And the memories of these days, these are priceless pictures. Even though I'm sick and I should be in bed, I'm enjoying looking at these pictures. And as I was looking at them, I thought it'd be worth sharing. Now, the story is Glenn had never taken the engine out of a Ducati, neither had I. And he brought the bike over. It was 9 in the morning. And I said, Glenn, the engine will be out by lunchtime. And sure enough, 10 minutes to 12, the engine was in Miles's wagon on its way to have the case welded. Great, great memories. I could never forget. And I never forget what a pain in the ass it was putting that airbox on. Holy mackerel. Anyway, I would not trade this life that I've had for anybody. There's Joe's Brutali, if I remember it. Maybe that isn't his Brutali. We were on a ride this day, and this is pictures, and now I recognize the day. One of Glenn's friends crashed right under the waterfall, and we had to rescue him with the truck. And Glenn had just gotten this Ducati, and he was all excited about it. And I got to ride it. I think I rode it this day. I don't remember. I got to ride it. Beautiful bike. And we all hung out on the top of Hawk's Nest there. But there's some memories you never forget, especially this winter. We have had a mild winter, and I've gotten a lot of riding during the winter. But this is a winter. I want to show these pictures. This is a winter. The lakes were frozen. It was 15 degrees up in Bear Mountain. Oh, my God. I remember the ride home. My lips were blue. I couldn't feel my fingertips. Oh, my God. This was so good. Great memories. But anyway, there's a picture I'll never forget. And this is one of the reasons I love having these old pictures. This is a picture I really should have. The lakes are frozen. My lips are frozen. My nose is drooling inside the helmet. And I wouldn't trade 1 minute of it for a day in the Bahamas. Not 1 second. It was a great day.